Oh man, I wanted to watch you putting your chapstick on. You
Because
deprived the viewer and I guess the listener of hearing you put your chapstick on. It was a very intense viewing, pleasurable watch
well, it's
to
because
watch you put your chapstick on.
because last week we started talking and my lips got super chapped. So I have my Ballistics right here ready to go because when I smoked my cigar, and I haven't had enough water today too, so I'm a little bit thirsty, but it's all good. Hey,
You
we didn't talk about
said,
cigars last week. What you got today?
well, so last week I actually have the wrapper here or the band. I smoked a Rojas last week, Texas Toast. I think I showed you, right?
Yeah, at the end of the
Fantastic, but
episode.
I smoked them all. Yeah, we got so
Okay,
into the book, The 48 Laws of Power, that we totally didn't talk about our cigars. This week, but actually, first, let's do the introduction real quick. So that way, anybody who just happens to pop
gotcha.
into this
Yeah.
YouTube
No worries.
video is like, oh, well, what is this? These weird guys are what? We're talking part two, 48 Laws of Power. We're a little disjointed this morning, but that's okay. The first episode was wow, super powerful. I edited it and holy cow, there was so much that was said. We're going to go through the 48 laws, pick out some of our favorites, pick out some of the stupid laws. I'm sure there are a few that maybe you want to point out, but let's get it. But first, let's talk about our cigars since we didn't do so last week. Texas Toast last week. This week I have an EP Carrillo. It is the Encore.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful band. And it's good. It's really fantastic. This is uh the Gordo, but it's not. I thought it was 6x60, which is the big fat cigars. Those are the ones that I've been buying recently because I can get an hour and a half to 2 hours out of them, and they cost like 50 cents more than a Toro or a Robusto. So the smaller size cigars. So I've been going with Gordos just because I can get so much longer, and a Robusto takes me an hour or less to smoke. So if I can get 2 hours, I'm literally getting twice the time with the cigar for 50 cents more. So that's the reason I've been buying Gordos. But anyway, this one's really good. EP Carrillo Encore. What do you got?
I have a. This is a new cigar. I went to the cigar shop
Move it
and
to your left.
I was gonna get me a Perdermo, and I'm going to Tenerife on Wednesday, so I'm gonna pick me up some cigars from Tenerife. So I didn't want to pick up a bunch of Perdomo and not smoke them for like 2 months because I'm gonna smoke the ones from Tenerife. So I got myself a La Palina Goldie Promenade, and this was just a recommendation of the cigar worker that was working that day in the cigar shop, and I just asked him what his favorite cigar was or the cigar that he's been smoking lately, and this is the first one that he pointed out. So I used one of the laws of power on him by asking what his opinion was and what he thought was a good smoke, and he felt so good about himself because he got to recommend what he was smoking, and so I went with this one. So far, so good, although the draw is quite heavy. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to I may cut the tip off a little bit more to get more of a draw on it, but so far, so good. It's got a balance of some coffee, some leather, some mild spice. So that's what I like in a cigar. I don't like it too spicy, and I'm definitely a mild cigar guy. I don't really like it super strong. So far, so good.
Yeah, that's actually my brother-in-law's favorite cigar, La Polina.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's interesting. You should take your lighter and this little thing that you have that I remember I the thing that I got you, and it's take
Yeah,
this, and if you poke it through the top, you can open it up just a little bit. So just push it
it's
all the way down, pull it out, push it all the way down, pull it out, and it will open it up. I got this thing for like $5 on Amazon,
it's
but it'll work and it
downstairs
helps
in my
open it
basement
up.
right now. It's not
Oh
here.
no. Do you want to take a break and go grab it real quick?
I think I loosened it up a little bit. I'm just pushing on the. I'm just making the hole bigger. It's okay. I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into this book.
Hey, before we
La-
do, I want to ask you a question. I always got these questions for you.
okay. Ask me. Ask away.
Is it okay? I mean, this is the point, right?
Yeah,
To
of
ask
course.
questions. So, what would constitute a perfect day for you? Like, what's a perfect day?
Uh Family friendly?
Sure.
I mean, uh, spending time with my wife
All day?
all day.
Dang, man, that's a long time.
That'd be a perfect day
So,
for me.
how many cigars do you smoke on a perfect day?
Oh boy, because if I smoke more than so I've smoked two back to back before. And at the end of two cigars, like my tongue is raw. I mean, it's like all
Yeah.
smoky, and so I don't even like doing more than one now. So I'll do one, and then if I have time later in the day, I'll do a second. Sometimes, I mean, some days I skip. Sometimes it just depends on what's going on. But me and Megan are going to Cancun in a
Oh
week.
yeah, that's right.
And so I imagine my perfect day is going to be one of those where we wake up, have breakfast, go sit by the pool. I actually have the eighth book of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which we need to read the
Okay.
first book.
Right.
We talked about that because you said you wanted to read some more fiction books. And I'm going to sit by the pool and I'm going to start the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I'm actually probably going to start it tonight, a week early. So I may finish it before I even, but then we have to read The Simple Path to Wealth on top of that. So I'll probably read that by the pool if that's the case. But anyway,
Yeah,
breakfast.
I'm taking that book with me, and I'm taking The Laws of Human Nature with me. So those are two
Right.
books
Because,
I'm taking to Tenerife.
yeah, we added that to our repertoire of books. But sitting by the
Right.
pool, taking a dip, reading all morning, maybe going for a walk by the beach, having lunch, going back to the room, hanging out, coming
Are
back
you
out to the
doing?
pool.
Are, hey, it's your perfect day.
You
Are
said
you
family friendly, man. So I'm
are
keeping it as
you
family friendly as possible.
are you doing like an all inclusive at in Cancun?
Yeah, it's an all inclusive. This is my first time at an all inclusive. Actually, no, okay. So we went to last year. We went to the Dominican Republic to a resort. It was all inclusive. It was all inclusive because they served alcohol. Now that I'm thinking of it, but their alcohol was awful,
It
and
usually is, yeah.
we experienced some interesting interactions. So if you did not speak Spanish in the Dominican Republic, then it was hard to get service. So I remember they served water from all the bars, and water was hard to get in Dominican Republic. So we like hoarded it, and we would be swimming or whatever, be like, "Oh, we're thirsty. Well, let's go ask for water." We would go to the bar, ask for water, and they say, "Oh, disculpame, no water, no agua, so disculpame. You have to go back." And they would tell us we had to go all the way back to the kitchen, which is half a mile away to get our
Right.
water. And I'm like, at first, I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer." So I like walked around the corner and like we stood there for a little bit, and I like peeked around the corner, and this couple came up and they were speaking Spanish, and they said, "Agua, por favor," and reached underneath the bar, gave him water. And as the moment that I saw him reach under the bar and he had the water in his hand, I popped up right on the corner. I said, "Agua ahora," right now, agua. And he looked at me and he kind of rolled his eyes and he reached under the bar and gave me water. Like that
Gotcha.
happened time and time again. So the strategy that I would use is I would wait because people were asking for water all the time. I would wait until somebody who spoke Spanish walked up, asked for water. I would walk right behind them. Agua por favor, también, gracias. And because they had just given it to them, they would have to give it to me. And I just used that
Yeah, yeah,
strategy
they
for the rest of the
do.
trip. But
Gotcha.
it
Gotcha.
was interesting being on this side. I mean, not to say that I understand discrimination and the complexity of it, but it was interesting being discriminated against because of the language that I spoke. It was
Right.
people were not friendly to you because you spoke English and you didn't speak Spanish. So that was really interesting. It was an interesting thing. We will never go back to the Dominican Republic because of that. The food wasn't that great either, but we'll never go back because of that. Like it was pretty prevalent from our experience. Like,
Yeah, that's
granted, we stayed on the resort mostly, but it was pretty prevalent.
I think that's the advantage of living internationally for us. I know Guam was more of a U.S. territory, but you still had a melting pot of Asian cultures there, Asian languages like Japanese, Chinese, Korean,
Right.
Tagalog. And even here in Germany, obviously English is not the first language of people, so they know how to speak English and they're willing to speak English. But for instance, we were in Lake Constance yesterday, for a little camping trip. So we went to a restaurant and we were going in to order, and we speak very limited German. So we use our German at first, and then when they try to speak English back to us, then we will stay or we'll speak English. But this person, as we're asking for a seat, he just looked at us and just went, "Oh, English," and continued serving the people. So we knew right then that, okay, he probably is not comfortable with speaking English. But I think that that gives you a respect for other cultures and other people groups,
Yeah.
knowing that the world does not revolve around Americans, nor does it
Yeah.
revolve around English. And it's okay if I'm not in the United States, I should not be catered to because I don't speak their language,
Right.
or I only speak English. I should not be catered to. So that's been a really good thing for us to not walk around thinking that we are entitled and that people should cater to us. And I think some Americans, I've been on trips with Americans where they think that um, this is more or less probably 10 years ago, but they thought that the world and people where we were at should cater to them because they were an American, and they literally would say those things. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's the right thing and the right attitude to have.
Yeah.
But these were, on some of the basketball trips that I would go on and with coaching and doing clinics and stuff. And kind of turned me off to, I guess, that perspective on how Americans can think that they're the center of the world when, when we look at America, we see that they're not. And living internationally has kind of helped us with that perspective.
Yeah, no, and maybe that was the experience that a lot of these workers at this resort in Dominican Republic had experienced of Americans,
Could have
and that
been.
was the
Right.
reason why they were acting that way. I mean, there's a reason for why people have the actions that they take. So that very well could have been the reason, and then they just determined in their mind, well, if you're, and that was something else that was surprising. The resort was massive, and we only saw one other American family the whole week that we were there. Only
Huh.
one other American family. There were lots of families from the Middle East, lots of families from Europe, lots of families from South America, but very few from America. This is also last year was at the beginning of the travel bans, and Trump was doing his tariffs for other countries, and other countries were angry with America because of the tariffs and how they were affecting people. So I can understand if people were viewing America in a certain way, and I was a representation of everything that they disliked about America. So maybe that
Right.
was the reason for why they treated us the way that they treated us as well. But I don't know. It's interesting. Hopefully on this Cancun trip, it will be a better personal service experience, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
will be
Especially if
more
you're
of
all
a
inclusive.
perfect day. Yeah, well, the last one was all inclusive too, so we'll see. I don't like to drink that much. I mean, I'll have a few, but it's kind of like, eh. So Megan has her days planned out. She loves this type of thing. Whenever we decided for sure that we were gonna go, she just
Right.
blossomed, and this is something that she
Good.
absolutely loves. She loves the planning aspect. She started packing like 2 weeks ago for
That's
for a
great.
trip we're not leaving for
Yeah.
another week.
Right. Right. Right.
So
3 weeks
this is
in
her
advance.
thing.
That's good.
Yeah, it's her thing. So I love it. I'm like the night before. Do I
Yeah.
do I
Same.
need 3 pairs
Gosh,
of underwear or four
I gotta
pairs?
do laundry. We leave in 3 hours.
If I jump in the pool, I don't have to wash my underwear, right?
Yeah, how many days can I wear this without people knowing? Hey, have you ever met a professional con artist?
Not a professional. Are you talking about somebody
Because
who uses the 48 laws of power?
yeah, so we he talks about con artists and
Yellow
what was it?
Kid.
Yellow Kid, right? He talked a lot about
Yep.
him and how he would swindle people out of money or swindle people uh, through trying to buy property or buy gold or buy diamonds,
Right.
whatever. So I have a story that actually could have been worse than what it was. But I had come across a professional con artist when I was 26 or 27. I don't know if
Hmm.
I've told you this story before.
Is this a motorcycle
So
story?
this is the motorcycle story. Have I told you
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one?
yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, you told me a while ago. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you the quick minute version of it. So I used to buy and sell motorcycles, and I had come across an ad for a motorcycle that was only $6,000. That was a $12,000 bike. And so when I see this motorcycle for 6,000, I see dollar signs because when I buy and sell the motorcycles, I was at the time I was selling them or I was buying them so cheap that I knew I'd make money on them. And
Right.
so I knew that if I could buy it, let's say it's worth 6,000, I can buy it for 4,800. After I put $200 into the registration and insurance and title, I'd make 1,000, and that was typically what I did. So when I saw this motorcycle for $6,000, is a brand new motorcycle with maybe 1,200 miles on it, I jumped at it. So I called the guy up. I met him where I usually meet people to buy the motorcycles, and the strange thing was, so first of all, there was red flags everywhere. There was, first of all, the red flag that it was a brand new bike and it was half the price of what it was brand new, right? So 12,000, now it's
Right.
6,000. He met me there with nobody else, nobody to take him back to his house or to wherever he lived. He just showed up on the bike. I thought that was strange. That's not something that usually happens. And then the third red flag that I just totally ignored was the title had been altered, and
Mm.
the part of the VIN number had been crossed out. He gave me the story of how, it was just an error on the bank side. The bank knew about it. And all you gotta do is take the title to the bank. You should be good to go. And me, so naively, it's like, oh yeah, I believed him.
Uh-huh.
Come to find out, when I had sold the bike, 3 days after I had sold the bike, I got a call from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. The FBI called me up, Mr. Tipton, we're looking for so and so. He had swindled or conned Docomo Pacific, which was a cell phone company there on Guam, out of millions of dollars in cell phones, and we're looking for him. You're the only person on Guam that came across his path. The reason why they knew it is because when I took the title to the Bank of Guam, they were like, we can't take this title. Like, it's been altered and there's still a loan on this bike. You have to pay off the loan. And I was like, no, here's a bill of sale. Here's,
Mm-hmm.
I just had the title signed over to me. And like, I'm sorry, you have to pay off this loan before you can have the main title released. So I'm like, oh man, I'm out $6,000 of a bike. I don't have much money to begin with because I'm in my early 20s. So he ended up leaving Guam. The FBI is calling me because I'm the only person who had come in contact with him. I'm literally fearing for my life because this con artist had contacted me or had a conversation with me only. The end of the story was I eventually got the title released somehow. I got the title released to my name. I eventually sold the bike for $12,000. But it was so crazy that reading through this book, I did not see any of the red flags, the vagueness of his story, the just the routines that most buyers or sellers go through to sell you something. He totally ignored. And I got lucky because I was able to sell the bike, I was able to make money and get away with it, without my life being threatened, I guess. So that was a really good story, I guess, to relate to what these laws are and how it can be used in a negative way,
Right.
as far
Yeah.
as using the 48 laws of power.
Yeah, 100% can be used in a negative way. And I think that's we spent the whole episode last time discussing the value of this book and how he never presents something as moral or immoral. And this book 1000% can be used immorally and people can use it to trick and con other people. Now you
Right.
have to decide whether or not you are going to use the laws of power to do something evil or to do something good, essentially. And I think there's a lot of middle ground. There's a lot of neutrality in the laws of power where there are things that people are comfortable doing and there are things that people are not comfortable doing. So, for example, I had an assignment that popped up where two interpreters were scheduled for the assignment for a 6 hour shift, and typically only one interpreter is scheduled for a 6 hour shift. And the other interpreter contacted me, and they're like trying to, I don't know, use the laws of power to convince me that I need to take the shift and they don't. And they have this reason or whatever. And I was like, no, 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 we're not playing this game. Like, I'm not going to take this shift and you just get off scot free and get paid. So I went ahead and reached out to the agency, and the agency was like, nope, you both need to be there at the same time. Like, we're not going to do this. One of you has to do it. And then they tried negotiating. They're like, well, how about you take half the shift and I take the other half of the shift? And still I was like, eh. So there's a lot of moral ambiguity that can be had. I had another interpreter tell me about a situation. I wasn't involved with this. I think I may have told this story before, where an interpreter contacted a deaf person and said, hey, do you want to attend this acting series, this drama series. And the deaf person said, sure. It's like, okay, well, I'll buy the tickets for you. Whether or not you want to come is up to you, but I'll buy the tickets for you. And the tickets were, I don't know, $100 a show or something like that. It was like 10 shows. So the interpreter paid out $1,000, knowing that they were the ones who had the contract with the production agency, and they're going to get paid $2,000 a show to interpret for this deaf person who had bought a ticket. And then the deaf person ended up, I don't really like acting, but they had already bought all the tickets. They had already scheduled the
Right.
interpreter for all 10 shows. So therefore, this interpreter made $20,000 off of this theater, this production company, and didn't see anything wrong with that. Now, I see something massively wrong with that, right? I see
Yeah.
something like that is beyond ethical boundaries. And if I knew about that situation and the particulars of it, I would report them to our certification body or to our licensure board. And I would say, hey, this is unethical behavior. At least do the research on it. Maybe I'm seeing it from the wrong perspective, but that's immoral behavior and it's something that needs to be addressed. But what if it was, I don't know, the deaf person bought the ticket and then they saw the interpreter out and they're like, you know what? I bought these 10 tickets myself, but I don't really think I'm going to go. Well, then is the interpreter obligated to tell the theater that the deaf person's not going to be there anyway, so they don't have to pay the interpreter? Like there's all kinds of lines. Like, okay, where you draw the line is up to you, and where somebody may see a moral line here, somebody else may see a moral line here, and obviously it gets to the point to where it's going to cross that boundary, but finding your own moral lines is super important. So what I want to do is go through these laws and pick out the ones that you thought were the best, because there were some excellent laws, especially in the beginning, like in
Right.
the first 12, really. I picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then after that, like, it gets pretty sparse
Well, let's
after
just
that.
start from the beginning. Let's just start from number one. I have, let's see, I have picked out one. Let's see here. Oh, I heard this. I picked out 3, 4, 5, 7, and 10 out of the first 12, and then I skipped to like 24 or 38. Let's talk
Yep.
about let's just talk about the first one. I listened to a podcast with Robert Greene, a few of them actually over the last couple of weeks, and he said that number one was the reason why Never Outshine the Master was the reason why he had actually written this book, because he had, before Robert Greene became an author, he was a screenwriter for Hollywood. He tried writing, I guess, journalism in magazines and
Yep.
newspapers, and failed at all of those. And I guess one of the reasons why I guess he had been fired multiple times because of this law number one. He always outshined his master or his boss because he was so good at what he did. So his boss would get rid of him.
Yep.
This is the reasoning behind why he wrote the laws of power. And he said the reason why I put law number one was because this was the law that he had broken so many times. He put it as number one as a reminder that to never break this rule again. So, yeah, law number one is to never outshine the master. What are your thoughts on this one?
No, so this law is kind of repeated elsewhere. Basically, and it's repeated in other laws where they talk about don't be too boastful or don't appear to be
Mhm.
too arrogant with your ability. So all of
Right.
us have a special ability to do something really well, whether that be welding, whether that be HVAC, whether that be teaching. Like, Brent Tipton can have the ability to arrest children's attention, play these games, be completely understanding, and it's repeated throughout the book.
Right.
Basically, the point is, if you're really good at something, downplay it. Like in another law, he says something like, play up the value of luck and your ability to be successful. So if I'm super successful, other people can be envious of your ability, your success in life, and therefore it's best to downplay your success, to downplay your ability as much as possible. Obviously, it's shown in law number one, which is never outshine the master. We don't need to appear to be better than those who are above us, but we also need to not appear to be better than people who are around us. Now, if you're really good at something, it's just going to be natural. that you're going to appear better. And the people who understand the laws of power will see that you're downplaying your ability, you're downplaying your skill in writing, or you're downplaying your skill in negotiation, or whatever the skill might be. And they're going to recognize that, and they're going to recognize your humility and your desire to not outshine anybody else around you or make anybody else around you look bad. And they're going to move you up, and you're going to gain more power because of that. But I have personally broken this law, and I have reaped the consequences because of it. I have thought that my opinion was right. I have thought that the way that I view things is right. And let's be clear, I still think that I'm right. But me
Right.
voicing that, or me saying I'm better than this person, or whatever the case may be, definitely did not help me move up, because I was outshining those people around me, or attempting to outshine those people around me. And that's definitely not something that is good in your pursuit
Yep.
of power.
He also had said, never outshine the master, but it's okay if you are trying to show what you can do with your peers, because that ultimately, if you're good at what you do and you have peers around you, then that will give them, I guess, a respect and an awe to what you can do. So I think it's okay to, according to what he also said, that even around your peers, you still want to try to outshine your peers because you're trying to level up and become better than them. And so this is strictly only referring to people who are going to give you that job promotion. It's funny that you said this is the one that you had also broken. When I was coaching for Guam and in Guam basketball, I was the first coach there that went for further professional training. And I would
Mm.
always go to these get my license, to get certification. So I was in the FIBA Europe coaching certificate, which is one of the most premier coaching certificates and education programs in the world for coaching. And I'd come back to Guam thinking I was hot stuff. And I wish I knew this law because I had burned a lot of bridges with relationships for me trying to prove that I was better than what I really was, because I wanted to one up people and I wanted to show how good I was. And so if I was to do it over again, like you just said, I would keep my mouth shut and realize that when it's time for me to reach the ultimate goal of whatever the goal was for coaching, then it would come through um, not trying to show off, but to just be consistent. And he also talked a
Your
lot about playing the
results.
long game. Just
Hmm.
play the long game, because let's say I'm trying to become the head coach of the men's basketball team there. This is several years ago, so it doesn't really matter to me anymore. But he said when you're playing the long game, if your boss is firm in their position, just know that give it time. Either they're going to mess up and be out of that position, they're going to grow tired of that position and want a challenge that may be even more difficult. And
Hmm.
one day that position will open up for you. But you just got to play the long game. And in our day and age, we're so focused on instant gratification and reaching our goals right now, when we have to realize that it's like when you're in your 20s, you want what your mom and dad had in their 40s and 50s, but you don't realize that it took them 20 or 30 years to get to where they are in life. And so we can't have it all right now. We have to play that long game. I
Right.
think that understanding that, with not trying to outshine our master, just play the long game. If you're really good at what you do, and you can thrive and you can be better than most people at that one theme, then eventually the person who's in control of you or is your boss, they're eventually going to move on, or something's going to happen. Then it's your opportunity to get into that job that you want, or that opportunity that you want. So
Really
um,
good. Yeah.
I have a question for you, since you're going to go to law number 2,
Yeah.
which is never put too much trust in your friends. Do you trust your friends?
I think it comes down to the definition of the word trust. So the second half of that is learn how to use enemies. In my profession, there are interesting dynamics. There are people that I consider friends who also at the same time are very interested in them looking the best at their profession. And if them looking the best at their profession means making me look bad, in a sense, well, they're going to do that. Not necessarily in an I want to hurt you way or I don't like you way. It can be I like you, but I want to look good in my profession. So therefore, as a result, I'm going to make you look bad. I'm going to say things to other people and I'm going to have actions that do not look good on you. Or maybe I'm going to blow something out of proportion because I perceive you as getting work or having a job that I want. So therefore, I'm going to talk about you and say how you're not a good fit for this job because I want that job and because I want that visibility. So, do I trust my friends? Yes, I do, but I think there's a point to where you have to be very careful whenever you're trusting people. The only people that I trust extremely intimately and completely are my wife and my son. Of course, we talked about that last week.
Right.
You, our other brother, so Neil. Like I trust Neil will make the right decision, even though we don't talk near as much as me and you do. I still have a certain level of trust for him just because we have talked a lot over the years. And if I needed something or if I needed his advice on something, like we still text every now and again, then I feel comfortable going to him with a level of trust. But I mean, with anybody, like trust has to be earned and trust can only go so far. So let's turn the question around to you. Like, do you trust your friends? Who do you trust? And how do you determine that?
Yeah, the reason why I asked that question was because gossip is one of the things that is prevalent in any work situation. And I know that there are certain people that if I hang out with them at work, it's eventually going to, conversation is eventually going to come back to talking about administration or talking about
Yep.
our boss negatively,
Yep.
talking about so and so from this part of work. And I know that if I associate with them, the conversation is eventually going to get back to gossip. And if somebody's going to gossip to you, they're going to gossip about you.
About you.
And
Yeah,
I understand
1000%.
this. And so I so here's something that is some people can take negatively about the 48 laws of power. He also says if you have no enemy, make one, even if it's a friend. So what Robert Greene's trying to associate with this is, hey, if you don't have any enemies, make an enemy because
That enemy can motivate you to do things that you wouldn't have done without an enemy. That's kind of how I look at it.
true,
So with
true.
friends, we're
But
super comfortable. I really like this person. You really like me. We're not really pushing each other past a point. But if I have an enemy, well, at that point, I need to prove the enemy wrong. So therefore, I'm going to be motivated to do things when I didn't have an enemy. That's kind of how I
right,
looked
but
at it.
yeah, but also to go into law number three, let's not talk about law number three right now, but to conceal your intentions. If
Yep.
you, I think you should separate, not all the time, but I think you should have separate work friends and separate friends, if you will.
Yes.
Because going back to my illustration with certain people at my job, if I talk to them, I know that it's going to eventually get back to gossip. And that is one thing that I try to pride myself on is not to gossip about even people at work that I don't like or I think are incompetent. And that's a struggle for most people because we want to put ourselves in a position to where we look powerful or we look all knowing, we look knowledgeable about our job. And when we start downplaying other people, then we in fact will lose power with that person because then now that person can go and say, hey, did you hear what Brent said about you? He actually thinks this
Yep.
about you. What do you think about that?
Yep.
And if that's
Yep.
like my boss or if that's a supervisor, then now that they have something on me that's negative. And so I think that I do trust my friends, but I know, I think we're all at an age now that we know that there's certain things that we shouldn't tell certain people. Like
Right.
if I just lost $50,000, I'm not going to go to work and tell this person who gossips to everybody because they're gonna be like, hey, did you hear Brent lost $50,000? He
Yep.
had a briefcase of cash and left it on the bench at the park. Can you believe how stupid he is? Like things like
Yep.
that. And maybe for you, I'd tell you, hey man, I just lost $50,000 on the SpaceX IPO. You know what I mean? So
Yep. Yep.
we
Yep.
we were
Yep.
texting back and forth on that today. But I just think it's going back to why you should read 48 Laws of Power. I think I see it more as a defensive book, and
Right.
I'm not trying to use my enemies. Abraham Lincoln said, "You destroy an enemy when you make a friend of him." I'm
Yes,
not
that was a
trying
great
to do
quote.
I'm not trying to do any of that. I just want to make sure that I don't gossip and don't associate with people who gossip. So that's how I applied law
Right.
number two.
Well, and that kind of goes into law number 3 and law number 4, which is always say less than necessary. So I had an example recently where I was on a job and I had a coworker that I was working with came up to me, took me to the side and said, "Can I just complain for a second?" And of course, in the back of my mind, I hear bells, wee 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 wee. I'm like, sure,
Right, right,
knowing what's going to come out. And they pointed out another person that was on site, and they said, "Can you believe that they did this? I just can't believe that they did this. That is so unprofessional." Okay, I got that off my
right,
chest. And my response was, "Oh yeah, oh that's interesting. Okay." So, which goes right down to number one, never outshine the master because this other person is higher on the totem pole than I am, and I don't want to outshine them. I don't want to talk bad about them. It goes to law number 2, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Like that's complex. Number 3,
right,
conceal your intentions. So, if we're being honest, the thing that they said, I 1000% agreed with. This thing should not have been done. But it wasn't my place to say anything about it. It was not my place to be honest about it because it really didn't matter. And the fact that they did it didn't affect me in any way. And it wasn't like it was unethical or immoral. So I'm just going to let them do it, even though I disagreed with the decision. So I concealed my intentions. And then number 4, always say less than necessary. I just said, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." "Oh man, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well,
Right, right,
thank you for being comfortable and sharing with me. Like I'm glad
right,
that you feel like you can share with me. And just
right,
just moved on from there. So while yes, each of these laws are important on their own, the fact is they also kind of conglomerate and mix in together in situations, and there's not any one way, which again, somebody may take one law and say you need to crush your enemies, which is one of the laws. And they say, see, this is bad. You would never intentionally hurt people. Well, how does that fit in with other laws? How does this is super complex. Interacting with other people is complex. So those were the first 4 laws that I went to. I did law number 5, which is so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. I couldn't read the word guard. I'd written it down. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life, which again goes back to the reason we're not going to gossip about coworkers. And if somebody's willing to talk bad about somebody else, you know that they're willing to talk bad about you. So be very careful. The things that you say to your coworkers, the way that you interact, outshining the master, like all of that, because it all is based on your reputation. And I want the
right,
reputation of being somebody who shows up, who works hard, who does an excellent job, who does not talk bad about other people, who downplays his successes, who does not try to show up anybody that's at the job. Therefore, people are going to be more comfortable around me, will use me, all based on my reputation. After that, I jumped to number 7. Did you have anything on those first 5 that I
Well,
did
let's
not
go back
have?
to yeah, law number 3, conceal your intentions. I have a personal story on this because and again, I is a violation of this law. This was actually Katie. So me and Katie, because we made the decision together. At our first teaching job, it was at a religious based institution, a school, and Katie knew that she was not going to be working at that school after that contract was over. So at the end of that school year, she was going to resign, and she wanted to move to Dodea, where she was applying to, which is her current job. So we went into the school year in August, and we wanted to be upfront with the fact that she was not going to be re-signing her contract, and this is 10 months, almost 12. Yeah, so it's 10 months before the contract was over. And we thought that we were doing this in good faith, by letting our
Honesty.
boss know that, hey,
Yeah.
we're not going to be, or she's not going to be coming back to work here, so I'm going to give you 10 months to find a suitable replacement. We thought that that was pretty mature and wise on our part.
It
Part of law
is.
number three, well, part of law number three, conceal your intentions. Why do people reveal their intentions? Well, first of all, when somebody wants the rest of the world to know like how good they're doing, they're going to reveal, oh, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that, because they want to hear themselves speak, or they want people to talk about what they're doing currently. The second thing of concealing your intentions and why people conceal their intentions is because, again, they want to be honest and open, and they think that this is going to win favor in their part because they're trying to show off their good nature, or whatever. This is the case of Katie and I. Come to find out that the people who had hired us, or the school that we were working for, actually used this against us because they ended up firing me off of not even a breach of contract. It was off of a personal opinion. And
Mm-hmm.
not to go into, well, the story was, again, I went back, and since I told you the motorcycle story to start the
Mm-hmm.
episode, I had bought a motorcycle to flip it, and on the sticker or on the motorcycle had a sticker that said fast. And again, me buying the motorcycle, knowing that I'm going to flip it, I did not take the sticker off. Looking in hindsight, knowing that this is a religious institution, I probably should have taken the sticker off,
Right.
but it's just a sticker. And so I had actually driven the motorcycle and parked it at the front door of the school, because that's where we parked our motorcycles. And somebody from the school had seen it. They were all upset because there was a curse word on the motorcycle. They wanted to know from administration who had this motorcycle. Come to find out, they knew it was me, and they were like a large donor of the school. And they said, this person needs to get fired. So they called me in, and they're like, well, we're gonna let you go even though you have a contract, which was, first of all, they can't do because I have a contract.
Right.
Um, and then, so I went into my termination meeting, if you will, signed papers that I would be terminated. And then that was probably an hour to an hour and a half meeting because there was so much that they were talking about. At the end of the meeting, I had signed the termination papers, and then they're like, oh, by the way, if you want to, we can rehire you, but you got to sign this paperwork. And on this paperwork, it was literally for no more pay, to do more duties, and to have, I guess, more accountability or restrictions to what I could and couldn't do. So basically, they were trying to get me to sign to do more, I guess, with less influence for the same amount of pay. And I looked at them and I was like, basically, you can shove it up. That's basically what I said. Because I
Yeah.
was like, this is absolute nonsense that you make me terminate my contract, and at the end, you try to bind me to even more so you have more control over me. And so I don't think that I would have been fired if they knew that Katie was not leaving the job at the end of that contract anyway, because Katie is way better at her job than what I was at my job. Not saying that I wasn't good at my job, but she is world class at what she does. And it's all
Mm-hmm.
because we did not conceal our intentions. There's a reason why you can give a 2-week notice for your job when you want to terminate a contract. And we should have
Yep.
used that 2-week notice as opposed to a 10-month notice. Again, a breach of law number 3 that I made when I was probably 24 or 25 years old.
Yeah, and there's a professional courtesy, right? And this is all about moral lines. So if you look at that, this was a Christian institution, an institution with people who are supposed to be of the highest morals, of the highest character,
We
and
will
so
say
therefore you telling
religious
them,
institution, not a Christian,
right?
a religious institution.
So you telling them, hey, we're Katie is not going to be here at the end of 10 months, was you being completely honest and open. That
Trying to.
was high morality on your part, high ethical behavior on your part. Who gives a 10-month notice? Like, that
Yeah.
is so considerate. And I'm the type of person, I hope, that I would say, holy cow, you gave me 10 months to find somebody else? Thank you. Like, thank you. You did not have to do that. But instead, we know that these laws of power and corrupt moral character is in all types of institutions, even religious institutions. In fact,
Right, right.
our personal experience is it's more so in
Yeah,
religious institutions than not. So they could have been of higher moral character, but yet they weren't. And the fact, I had not heard the second part, I heard the first part of that story. The fact that they fired you based on a fireable offense and then immediately tried to rehire you shows the corruptness of their own character,
right.
shows how immoral and ungodly they were. Because if it was worth firing you for an offense that you had done, let's say that you had sexually harassed another coworker and you had smacked a coworker on the butt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fireable offense.
Right.
It's so offensive, and that person, that lady that you smacked her butt, went to the administration and said, Brent smacked my butt. It's inappropriate. He made an inappropriate comment whenever he did it. And administration says, we're making the decision to fire you. And then directly after that, they say, you know what? We're going to rehire you right away. How offended and how much of an insult would that be for that woman that you had sexually harassed?
Right.
They would
Yeah.
see, oh, he got fired. Oh, he's here the next day, rehired under some mumbo jumbo. That is corruptness at the most insane level. And this is the reason, and that was in a religious institution where you shouldn't have to worry about immorality and corruption.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you should be less worried about there than working at McDonald's. Yet, McDonald's has higher standards than a religious institution would. That is the reason why you have to know the 48 laws of power. And it's also the reason why it was great that you were honest, that Katie was honest. And I used to be the same way. But sometimes it's best to bring it to that professional courtesy line and let them know 2 weeks before the end of the job. That way they can't be morally corrupt and do something nasty to you in an effort to get back at you for revenge or for envy or for jealousy or wherever it might be. Never assume that a person is of such high moral character that they're not going to bend down to the level of moral corruptibility. Like, I will never assume that ever again. No matter how good I think a person is, I will conceal my intentions to the point to where it's morally correct. So it is accepted in professional culture that you will give somebody a 2 weeks notice. Anything more than that is just a courtesy, professional courtesy on your part. Anything less than that is professional discourtesy, right? So it's also just as wrong, although I would understand why, if you have a super toxic culture, why you would go to your boss and say, hey, by the way, this is an at-will state, free-to-work state. I'm leaving tomorrow. Good
Right.
luck. Again, that's that moral line. And we have seen where people have waited to the last moment and then they've just left the job the next day and not told anybody or sent an email, I'm not coming to work anymore. Now, granted, you have to draw the moral lines where you want to draw the moral lines. Professional courtesy says 2 weeks, but also it's best to conceal your intentions and not be completely honest when you know that it can come back and bite you in the butt later. Excellent story. What about 4 and
Yeah.
5? Did you have any feedback about
Yeah.
always say less than necessary, or your reputation is your best guarded with your life?
Yeah. Law number 4. We talked a lot about in the last episode last week about the importance of self-control in gaining power and influence. And in this law, he brought up a quote by Nacus Marcius. He said, "A person who cannot control his words shows that he cannot control himself and is unworthy of respect." And there's always been a saying that I've known since I've been a little kid that it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and to remove all doubt. And I think sometimes, whether we know what we're talking about or we don't know what we're talking about, sometimes it's just best to keep our mouth shut and to think before we speak. Because if you, I know that I used this law inadvertently and I didn't know about this law, but when I was coaching and I walked into a room of coaches who I knew were better professionally than me or smarter than me or had more experience than me, I always kept my mouth shut because I intuitively knew that if I opened up my mouth and started talking about tactics or strategy or technique, then they would instantly know that I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I guess I could inadvertently say I use this law to keep my mouth shut or always say less than necessary. A, whether you don't know enough, so you keep your mouth shut to show that you don't know what you don't know, or B, also it's also important to keep your mouth shut, always say less than necessary, even if you're the smartest person in the room, because
Yes.
if you keep talking and that way, if you're always trying to show how smart you are, then you also lose power because people start to associate you with arrogance or with like being a know-it-all, and even having that character trait is also going to divert authority and divert power from you. So whether you don't know or you do know, law number 4 for me, always say less than necessary, is something that I think is very powerful. And just knowing that if I open up my mouth and there's somebody who's smarter than me in the room, then they're going to know that I'm a fool. So there's just some thoughts about law number 4. Law number 5, just your reputation is, like, for instance, your reputation precedes you. I think that's one of the best things that can be said about you, is because if your reputation precedes you, then I think that you've applied a lot of these rules that are talked about in the 48
Mm-hmm.
laws of power. But it's just, I guess, if your reputation precedes you, then it shows that you've done the work, you've worked hard, you've become good at one or two things. And if people know that you're really good at those one or two things, then you don't even have to open your mouth. You already have power and influence because you've already done the groundwork to reach the height of influence at whatever that one or two good things are that you do. For instance, with you and interpreting, I'm sure that a lot of people, all they got to say is Brian Tipton, and they know with that name comes professionalism, comes incredible skill with interpreting, comes people skills with being relatable to all types of people, all types of situations, because you've worked for a decade and more, maybe almost 2 decades now, on increasing your reputation because you've done such good work up to this point. So, again, like the laws that we've talked about, we haven't talked about saying the right words to seduce somebody. We
Right.
haven't talked about, hey, this is a tried and true formula on how to manipulate and deceive
Yep.
somebody.
Yep.
All of these laws have been focused on one, we've broken that law, or two, this is the law that you need to focus on if you're struggling with, like, for instance, ego. Say less than what you think you should say, because if your ego gets in the way, you're going to say things or talk too much or be too prideful, too egotistical. And so, like I said last time we said this, I think that the 48 Laws of Power is probably one of the best self-help books that I've ever read, because it helps me understand myself better in relation to other people.
The next law that I wrote down was number 7, but we talked about that one last week. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. The one
Right.
thing that I thought, obviously, you have to be careful of this if you're doing a project with an equal or a peer. So if you don't own the business and you want to take the credit for your workers doing such a good job because you're the manager of them or you're the owner of that business, but if you're working with a peer, then be very careful about taking the credit and not giving them any of the credit, because then you're going to turn a potential ally into an enemy. And although Robert Greene says if you don't have any enemies, make one, that's not necessarily the best way to make an enemy is by taking all the credit. Again, that goes back to egotistical behavior. Look how good I am. Sure, they're fine, but I did all the work. I'm the one who deserves all the praise and glory. Like, he counteracts that with other laws. Did you have any feedback on law number 7?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He gave the comparison to being a hyena and a lion in this law. So there are those who live by hunting and killing, which would be a lion, or people trying to gain information or to take advantage of people. And then there's also animals in the animal kingdom like a hyena. So, for instance, a hyena or a vulture, they're going to let another animal do the killing, and then they're going to take the spoils that that lion left over. So the
Mm-hmm.
hyena comes in and eats the rest, or the vulture will come in and eat the rest. And he alluded this, and it's funny because you talked about this with Ryan Holiday. You said on previous episodes and even just in conversation back and forth that Ryan Holiday saw an opportunity to write about Stoicism, whether was an expert in it at the start or not, to make a profit in the books that he sold. And in the book Wisdom Takes Work, he talked a lot about having conversations with the dead. And Robert Greene in this law talked about going to history to find what other people have done and then basically regurgitating what people have already written about. And this
Ripping
will
them
make
off.
you, right, it will make you appear more brilliant than you really are.
Right.
And I think sometimes with this law, we think that in order to be prominent or to have authority or to be looked at with esteem, we have to be that lion. But he's also saying in this law that you can actually be a hyena, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is a negative trait to the 48 laws of power, but you can actually be a hyena and steal from what other people have done. I think Isaac Newton
Right.
called it standing on the shoulders of giants or something like that.
Right.
To
But it's presented in such a
um,
more positive way in the way that Isaac Newton
right,
says it, right?
right.
Yeah.
So
Standing on the
it,
shoulders of giants means stealing from their past work.
yes, yeah. Basically, yeah. So I have a story about this. When I was coaching, again, a lot of my stories come from coaching. There was this concept called the two-side transition, and I'm not the originator of the concept, but the person who had promoted this concept had a business where coaches would pay him to get access to like teaching videos, teaching clinics. And another company had contacted me to go to the States, work with the college team to teach these concepts to the college team. And then they videoed it. It's probably 20, 25 hours of video. And we would sell it, and that would be my book, or I would get royalties from the sale of that video. Well, this other company basically contacted the company that I was working for and was going to sue us for intellectual theft of
Right.
intellectual knowledge. And it had come down to a lawsuit, and the company that I was working for had been like, okay, fine, we're not going to put these videos out because you're threatening a lawsuit for this. But the fact of the matter was, the company who was threatening us with the lawsuit wasn't the company that came up with the idea or the concept. Like the phrase, "There's nothing new under the sun." It would be like one company saying that they invented the pick and roll, and then me coming in and teaching the pick and roll. So
Right.
I didn't like the fact that the company that I was working for was like, okay, all right, we're not going to put these videos out and make profit on it because you say that you own the intellectual knowledge or the intellectual property to this. So when I was writing in my journal about this situation and on this law, I had written about that situation to where I guess I could have been seen as a hyena coming in and stealing their intellectual property, although I wasn't. But on the flip side, the company who was going to like use lawyers to sue us was actually using a law of power in trying to manipulate us into not putting out material for profit because it would
Right.
actually impact their business, even though that
Right.
they weren't the originator of that concept. And so going back to that situation that happened about 5 years ago, I think that I would have disguised a lot more of the terminology that I was using to make it look more like my own work as opposed to just
Right.
a general concept. So I wish
Right.
I would have known this law back then too.
Yeah, and like if you were teaching the pick and roll, you could have called it the screen and move, right?
Basically,
Called it
yes. So I
something
got
else. Like I'm not
right,
going to name it the pick and roll because another company associates it with that, and they're not the
right,
originators of the idea. This idea has been in basketball for years and years and years. They're just the ones that labeled it the pick and roll. So therefore, I'm going to call it the screen and move, and therefore I'm going to be able to take credit for the work that I've done in studying the best way to do it. Like there's nothing new under the sun, as you said, and for this company to try to take credit for an idea. Now, granted, there is intellectual property theft. There are people who scavenge and take inappropriate credit for things that are not actually theirs. But there's also that moral line, and there's something that we all can look at and say, yes, this is wrong, but Brent teaching the screen and move versus the pick and roll is not wrong. For that company to defend itself in the way, of course, it's just business, right? And that's something else
right,
that I wanted to say at the very end. He says, in the struggle for power, remember nothing is personal. So we should
Oh
never
yeah,
get
that's
offended.
right.
We should always
Yeah.
control our emotions. Never assume that this company wants to do me harm directly. They're just protecting themselves and trying to present the best themselves in the best light, so that way they can make the most money. So that way they can be the most powerful. So that way they can be the most influential. That's just playing the 48 laws of power. It's not necessarily moral or immoral. Next law that I went to was number 9: win through your actions, never through argument. And I wrote down, sometimes it's best, this is a quote from the book, sometimes it's best to just let someone be wrong. And the example that I gave recently, where somebody came up to me and said, can you believe that they did this? I looked at what they did and I was like, yeah, probably wouldn't have done that. Like, that was not a professional decision for them to make. But I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to bring it up because, in the ultimate scheme of things, it really didn't matter. It didn't affect me in any way. Like, I wasn't the one that was affected. It's not going to affect my power. It's not going to affect my pay. It's not going to affect my professionalism at all. It wasn't unethical or immoral necessarily that they made this action. So I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to argue with the person that felt like they needed to call them out to me, pull me to the side and say, can I just complain to you for a little bit? Right? I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to win through my actions, show that I'm not egotistical, do the best at the job that I can, not outshine the masters, not outshine my peers, but show that I am good, I'm dependable, I'm professional, I'm a hard worker, all of that, and use selective comments and not comment on some things in order to promote myself and make myself more powerful, in order to get better jobs, and in order to make more money and be more powerful later on. Did you have any feedback on win through your actions, never through arguments?
No, but why do you think that person came to you specifically? Because I'm sure it wasn't out of convenience that you just happened to be there. I would bet that they sought you out to complain to you specifically. Do you think it was like, what do you think? Why do you think that they came to you specifically?
So that's complex. I don't want to reveal more about the situation than I should, but there are complexities in my profession of who gets what work, why people get certain jobs. There are people who will flaunt the rules and will skirt the rules to get work and to get contracts. Like, this is just business. This is just where anybody who's a freelancer, anybody who owns a business knows that these things happen. They're skirting those lines of morality. And how can I be the best possible person that I can be while at the same time staying on the moral side of an argument? And so this person came to me because they perceived that it would gain them power and influence in a way that would benefit them by undercutting another person on the team and saying something. And granted, what they said wasn't necessarily wrong, but again, did it affect anything? No, it didn't affect anything. Was it immoral? No, it wasn't immoral. Was it unethical? I mean, it skirted the lines of ethical questionability, but it wasn't to the point, like, that action could have been called out by anybody who was in the room at any time, and nobody called them out. I didn't call them out. I was like, oh, I, like, literally, when that situation happened, I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I wouldn't have done that. Well, all right, let's move on. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, right,
that's literally the extent of it. But that's a tactic. And that's the
right,
reason why they came to me, because I was literally the only other person in the room that they could have talked to about it.
right.
That's the
Okay.
reason.
I think he also talked about, I don't know what part of law this was on, but if asked a question that you don't want to answer, you can always say, let me think about it, or let me get back to you, or, oh, that sounds like a great idea. To not give definite, or to not really reveal what you truly think, or given a commitment to
Yep.
something. And I can't remember, sorry, I can't give you a good example or what he said, but just when you say that, like when you said, oh, that's, you gave a vague answer that gives them a vague thought where they can't pin on you, well, this is what Brian said, or this is exactly what
Yep.
Brian thinks, which in the
Yep.
end could prove harmful to you. So
Yep. Yep. No,
that's
I have an
interesting.
example where there was a situation where I had somebody who reached out to me and they named people in writing, this person is awful, this person is awful, and this person is awful. This situation is awful. Now, granted, I look at their assessment of the situation and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see why they're appearing to assess the situation in this way. But me agreeing with them, especially in writing, is not going to be in my favor because the people that they're attacking are the people in power. So
Right.
me agreeing with them via text is not going to, and I text you about this situation. And
Right.
me agreeing with them in text is not going to help me out at all. Like it may make them feel better in the moment, but they're just looking for validation of their opinion. Whether or not I agree with them in the moment is not going to help me out at all. It's only going to help them. So my response to them in that moment was, "Oh man, that sucks."
Right.
That's it. Or, "Oh man, that's bad. That's sad to hear." Like that's it. Very non-committal, very, I'm going to stay away from the situation. I'm going to say, "Oh man, that's sad," but I'm not going to go any further. And that actually leads me into law number 10, which I wrote down as well,
Before
which is
before you go,
infection.
Brian, before you
It,
go
it,
there,
it,
can you how would you have responded 10 years ago to that situation?
well, so it depends if I saw the actions of the powerful as immoral or unethical. If I saw that, and there was some level of immorality in the decision that was made, some level. The way that it was handled was not the best. So this particular situation I might not have, but there have been other situations where I viewed the actions of the powerful as crossing that immoral line or that unethical line, and I would have agreed with them in text, and I would have taken the charge and saying, you know what, I'm going to tell several people about what happened in an effort to cut them down, make them pay for their immorality or their unethical behavior. But the problem with me doing something like that 10 years ago, which I did, was that now the powerful, again, the people who are in power, the masters in that situation, would hear, oh, Brian disagrees with this situation. He thinks that we're immoral. He's telling people that we're immoral for making this decision. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure that Brian doesn't get any work from us. I'm going to make sure that Brian doesn't benefit from these contracts that we have, and it would come around and it would hurt me because I attack the powerful. Now, in any situation, it's not necessarily so. Granted, if there's sexual assault that happens in a situation, then of course I'm going to say something. I'm going to report it to the authorities. But I think we talked about it in one of Ryan Holiday's book. If I can't sleep at night because of the situation, then yes, I should say something. But if it's something that's like, yeah, I mean, like it was a bad decision, it was immoral or unethical on their part, but I could still sleep at night. It was just somebody was fired without cause, essentially, or somebody was taken off a job unjustified, or the job was given or the contract was given to somebody who didn't earn it only because of who they knew, not because of the quality of their work. Like all of that, like, does that really? No, I'm going to be able to sleep at night just fine. Therefore, I don't need to say anything about that. If it comes to the level of illegal or so immoral that I'm not going to be able to sleep, it's going to bother me at night, then yes, I will say something. But a lot of situations are just, yeah, that really sucks. I'm going to stay out of it. And that's the way that I've decided to approach these situations now, which leads to number 10, which is infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky. And a lot of these situations happen because the person who was taken off the job or was taken advantage of in that situation, or the powerful decided not to use them, or the powerful gave somebody else the contract when they could have given it to them. A lot of that is because of their ego. Yes, they're right, but they're egotistical that they're right. They're crowing that they're right. And I agree with them. They are 100% right, but the way that they're handling it is not the best. Therefore, they are perceived as unhappy and unlucky, and me showing support to them by texting them, oh, yeah, you're right, this person sucks, and all of that, validating that, is me associating myself with the unhappy and unlucky, and their reputation is only going to drag me down. Granted, the powerful weren't necessarily right, but me associating with this person who's extremely unhappy and letting everybody know how unhappy and how unlucky they are is only going to hurt me. So therefore, I'm not going to associate with them. I'm going to say, oh man, that sucks, and leave it at that. That's what I saw with law number
Yeah.
10. Do you see anything?
Yeah, we talk often about, even with Soren, but at school with my students, and then when I was coaching, we talked a lot about being an ET or an EG. So an ET would be an energy taker, an EG would be an energy giver,
Mm.
and we constantly talk about, are you giving energy? Are you clapping people up? Are you positive? And an ET would be somebody who has bad body language, who's complaining, who is not giving full effort in drills or in class. And so, as a coach or as a teacher, and even as a parent, we can't necessarily avoid the unhappy and unlucky if it's our student or player or our son. But there are characteristics of people that we should avoid. And these are the people who, for instance, going back to like a coworker who I know is a chronic gossiper. If I associate with them, people associate with me that I'm a gossiper. But we
Mm-hmm.
also, people who are constantly discontent or people who complain about everything. Those characteristics. Not only should we avoid them just because they do those things, but we should avoid them because if they're going to complain about everything, so I will eventually start complaining
Yep.
about everything. If they're envious of my coworker because he just got a brand new car or they moved into this really nice house, then I'm going to eventually become envious. And it kind of goes back to the 5 people that you associate with or the 5 people that you surround yourself with. That's who you become. I think it kind of goes into this law that you should not only just avoid people because they have attitude problems or they're negative, but to see it in the light that, yes, they are like that, but if you associate with them or you are, you're forming like deep friendships with them, you're eventually going to become like that if you are not going to apply law number 10. So I just thought that was interesting. And again, it's funny that each of these laws are going to be interpreted based upon your life story.
Right.
And like your examples of these laws and maybe you transgressing these laws are because of your life story. And maybe if somebody who had been manipulated, who had been deceived, or has had that as an example in their life story, then I could see why they may not want to associate with the 48 laws of power. But if you have a growth mindset, I think that you're going to read all of these laws and try to apply it not to affect somebody else, but you're going to read it to perfect or make yourself better. And uh, those are just some of the thoughts I had on law number 10. Um, what's the next law you got?
The next law was law number 11, which was learn to
Okay.
keep people dependent on you. And from this perspective, being a good person is a way that you can keep people dependent on you. In my example, and I wrote down be available, be needed. If I show up to work on time, if I do a good job, if I'm professional, if I don't complain, if I don't cut people down above me, if I'm not egotistical and I'm dependable, then people will then depend on me to show up to do the job that they know is going to happen. But also, like, there are 48 laws of power involved in all of this because if I am too dependable for them, well, then at that point, they're going to take advantage. And so every now and again, you have to not be undependable, but you have to withdraw your services. And he talks about this in a later law, which is absence makes the heart grow fonder. Be absent at some times, which can make them want you even more. And so I do this. My work comes in cycles to where I'll work more for one agency than another. And then when I feel like that agency is starting to take advantage or they're being unthankful or they're trying to get one over on me, well, then I will back off from that agency and I'll work for another agency. And then I find at that time the quality and the offerings of the work from this other agency that I stopped working for goes up. And then the agency that I'm working for over here, quality of their work starts to go down because I'm so dependable. And so I back off of this agency and I have a third agency that I work with. So always make people depend on you by being dependable, but also don't let people take advantage of you and back off where necessary. And this one really applied to my life, especially with my work, by not putting all of my eggs in one basket, only working for one entity, but being willing to work for several entities, being dependable so that they depend on me for the quality of my work. So that way I get more work, I have more influence, and I have more power. Did you see anything out of law number 11?
No, it kind of goes into law number 16, which is the next law that I had, which was use
Wait,
absence to increase respect and honor. Did
yes.
you also have something on that one?
I did not. I did not write that one down, but I think because I'd already covered so many points of that one, I didn't write that specific one down.
Well, um, we watch a lot of America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent. That's just something that we like to watch as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, Simon Cowell is the organizer and the person who came up with AGT and BGT. And he was talking to a contestant about this law, not by name, but how when you are absent from the limelight, or for in this situation, you're absent from one of the organizations that you interpret for, when you are absent from it and their quality of work goes down, that actually gives you more power and influence, because they see that if Brian's not associated with us, then our quality decreases. And
Right.
within this law, he talked about he one of his favorite people that he liked to talk about was Napoleon.
Mm-hmm.
And Napoleon said, if I'm often seen in the theater, people will cease to notice me. And in the margin of my book, I wrote in big letters, social media is the modern day theater.
Right.
And people think that if I'm constantly posting my stories to social media, sometimes, I have friends that are posting on social media to their stories 10 to 15 times a day. And then on
You stop
their social
watching.
media, yeah, exactly. Like what they say becomes irrelevant.
Meaningless.
And
Yeah.
they keep posting the same thing, same thing. And if
Yeah.
they only knew that, hey, post once a week, or in your situation, you said that, except for the exception of Rich Dad Poor Dad, you're only posting on social media every
Three
two
times a
to
week.
3 days,
Yeah.
just because it's not every single day. It's not always in people's faces. And for instance, going back to BGT, Simon Cowell said Michael Jackson would put out an album and it would gain amazing fanfare. People were always talking about it. And then Michael Jackson would literally disappear for 1 or 2 years, not have any contact with the paparazzi or with um, magazines or any news outlets. And then all of a sudden, 2 years down the road, he puts out another platinum album. And
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson knew how to use law number 16, use absence to increase honor and respect uh, to absolute perfection. And I think going back to social media, if we can understand that people don't really care what we post and they really don't care what we're doing, if we really want to matter and have the limelight on social media, is to disappear. And once a week, if you are, you're putting out content, maybe your content should be once a week. We also watch a lot of Dude Perfect because Soren is a huge Dude Perfect fan. They said in an interview that they're only going to post every 2 weeks, because if they're posting every single day, or they're posting even once a week, in their opinion, the influence of their content is actually decreased because there's so much of it. So they put
Right.
out less in order to have more impact. And this is a law that I can't really use in my life, because I'm not putting out content or I'm not trying to sell anything. But if you're trying to sell yourself and trying to sell a product, sometimes less is more in this
Right.
situation of using absence to increase your impact and your power.
1000%. Yeah, 1000%. The next law that I had was number 12: use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. And then below that, I put have a reputation for honesty. And that just goes back to everything that I've talked about previous to this, and you've talked about as well, is you have to be selectively honest. I had a person who asked for my feedback regarding a program that they had set up, and I felt like I need to give genuine, honest feedback. And there was a flaw in that program. So I pointed out the flaw and I said, this is something that could be improved. That person said, oh, that's interesting. We walked away from that interaction. And soon after, I was removed from all jobs associated with that person, all jobs, all work associated with that person. I did not understand why. It did not make sense to me until I understood this law, which is people don't want you to be honest with them. And it doesn't benefit you to give honest feedback in a lot of cases because people don't want to hear your honest feedback. All they want is flattery. And what this person was looking for was, this is the best program that I've ever seen. This program will be successful in ways that we cannot imagine. Your legacy is going to be cemented in the lore of interpreting and our profession for millennia to come. That is what they wanted to hear. But instead, I gave them genuine feedback. That genuine feedback cost me work because they did not like my genuine feedback. Now, it's been 10 years since I gave that genuine feedback. And ironically, the exact suggestion that I made was implemented after this person left the position. Literally, the exact thing that I said was put in place the moment that this person was gone. So it was obviously a needed addition to the program. They were offended that I suggested it. But again, it comes back to, do not give people honest feedback because they don't want it. Now, granted, iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend, right? If I'm coming to you about something, I am 1000% okay with you telling me that's not the best decision for you to make. You can improve in this area or the other. But even feedback from you, who I trust implicitly, there are going to be moments where I'm like, I don't like the feedback that Brent gave me. And you're literally one of the closest people to me in my life. And there are going to be moments where I'm like, I don't want to talk to him for a while. I don't like his feedback, you
Yeah.
know? And then I think about it for a while. I'm like, oh, he's right. And then I
Right.
move on, right?
Right.
But people don't want feedback. And if it's not going to affect your life at all by you giving them that feedback, then don't give that feedback. So if the feedback is, we need to work remote 1 day a week, and this person is dead set on people working from the office, and you shove a study in their face that says if people have at least one, I don't know this case, people have at least one remote day of work a week, they're more productive than people who work 5 days a week.
Hmm.
And you shove that in their face. See, this is something that you need to adjust. You are wrong in this issue. That boss or that supervisor or that coworker is going to do everything in their power to make sure you get the worst jobs, to make sure you're on the worst projects. They're going to take as much work away from you because you were honest. Instead, be generous. So use selective honesty and generosity to disarm. I can point out the good points to this program. And that's what I should have done. I should have, and there were great points. There were awesome points to the program. This was good. This was good. I'm thankful you're doing this and you've done a great job at this. Leave it at that. Do not be honest when it comes to the flaws that are in the program because it will come back to bite you. Did you have any response to law number
Yeah.
12?
Well, Robert Greene said honesty is actually a blunt instrument which bloodies
Yes.
more than it cuts. And I had to read that a few times when he said that because I was like, okay, it's a blunt instrument and it bloodies more than it cuts, meaning that when you use honesty on someone, instead of thinking that it cuts them and injures them, it actually is like going at somebody with a bat, which takes way more hits to do its damage than a knife would. And it goes to the fact that what you just explained, that honesty, unless it's your closest friend or your brother, or this situation, brothers, it is going to offend people. So just tell them what they want to hear. And again, it kind of goes back to what we've been saying this whole time. You won't know that unless you read 48 Laws of Power. Like, you won't know how to tailor your words to tell people what they want, instead of giving them the blunt truth, because you think that being, again, going back to, you think that being honesty is what's best for you and that person, and in fact it's taking away all of your power and influence on that person's. So yeah, I'm just really thankful that these are things that, I don't know if there's a 48 Laws of Power book out there for kids, but we just bought Soren a book called The Little Emperor, which is the meditations written for kids, and we have it
Interesting.
for Soren now, and it's going to be one of our summer reads with him this summer. But the earlier that we can learn, for instance, this fact about not being honest is actually in some cases better than just telling the truth to the person.
Hmm.
Again, the earlier we can learn these rules of life, the better off that we can do, not just for ourselves, but in our relationships with other people. So that's just some of the initial thoughts that I had about what you said.
The next law that I jumped to was number 22. So I jumped 10 laws at that point. I know you said something
Yeah.
about law 16, which you've talked about a little bit,
Right.
but law
Right.
number 22 says use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power. And I put inwardly you stay firm, but outwardly you bend. And this just comes back to the truth aspect where somebody wants to be egotistical to you. It depends in the moment what the appropriate course of action or the appropriate thing to say is. And it may be the appropriate thing to bend to their will so that you can gain power in another area and influence them later on in other ways. I really liked Law 22. Did you have anything to say about 22 or any of the laws up to this point?
Yeah, with law number 22, it's like your political opinion. If you're
Yeah,
around somebody who is a Trump supporter and you're not a Trump supporter, it's okay to bend to what they think, or bend to how they think the world should be viewed or this political opinion should be viewed. It's perfectly okay to say things that help them with their agenda, but be secure and confident enough that I can still have my own belief politically, even if I disagree with you. I can bend and just, I not agree with you, but give the illusion that I agree with you, because if you disagree politically, you're going to ruin every single friendship for the most part,
yep,
whether that's
yep.
politics or religion or finances. So it's okay to bend to other people's ideas and philosophy or opinions, knowing that at the end of the day, I believe what I believe. They don't have to know it, and I don't have to agree with them.
Yep.
But sometimes trying to get the upper hand with them and proving my point, it actually takes away my influence and my power.
Which goes back to law number 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Sometimes it's best to just let someone be wrong. I
Right.
always say if someone tells me something that I disagree with about Trump or about the liberal side, the liberal argument, I always say, oh, that's interesting. And I leave it at
Right.
that. Literally, oh, that's interesting. And we talked about last week about the ability to genuinely appear, it's opposite, the ability to disingenuinely appear genuine. Did I say that
Right.
right?
Yeah. To
So
be
I don't,
genuinely
I think that, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah,
What
go
was
ahead.
it?
No, you're not, you're good. To be genuinely disingenuous, or
Right.
this, well, I can't remember now.
People know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
there's, it will benefit me none. It will benefit our relationship none if I say no, you're wrong.
Right,
And
exactly.
I've seen people who say things like, well, our lack of ability to discuss political hot topics has led to the decline in American culture, or something to that effect. Sure, yeah, you're 100% right. But you know what? If you have a strong opinion about some political topic, people are naturally going to avoid you. They're not going
Right.
to follow you. They're not going to be friends with you. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. Like if you want and you feel, again, if it's something that you're not going to be able to sleep at night, if Trump detaining immigrants, through ICE, bothers you so much, like approach it in a way to where you can tell select people or you can protest in a very specific manner. Don't be egotistical about it. And then understand that you stating a very solidified opinion on a particular topic is going to remove people from your life and reduce your power. That's the only thing that you have to know about that.
And
So yeah.
it goes. If you could maybe put an umbrella of what every single law that we talked about already and all the 48 laws, I think if you were to put one phrase to describe all the 48 laws of power, it is to, or we, in order to have power and influence, we must be all things to all people.
Yes.
And if we
That's
could,
law 38.
I mean, that's just when you what you're saying just makes me think of that phrase. If we could just have the mindset that if I can just be all things to all people and tolerant of what other people believe, but secure
Mhm.
in what I believe, and we don't have to have that dividing line on, well, you believe this, I believe that. I'm not talking to you. I can't, and we're not going to be friends. I think not only is that immature, but it takes away, if you're seeking power and influence, it takes all of that away. And he also talks a lot about, he phrases this a lot throughout the book and almost every single law, but you have to learn how to wear different masks around different people. Meaning, okay, I'm around Brian, I'm going to put on this mask because I know he believes and he thinks this way. Okay, now I'm around Mr. Johnson. He sees the world through through this lens, so I'm going to put on this mask because now I'm around Mr. Johnson. Now, people could argue that, well, you're not being true, you're not being honest, you're not being who you say you are. But I think that being all things to all people and knowing how to wear different masks around different people doesn't make you false, but it makes you that much more influential and deeper of a person
Yes.
because you can relate to so many different people, not to manipulate them, seduce them, and to deceive them, but maybe so that you can get to know them at a deeper level where you're withholding information about yourself, which is wearing a mask, so that you can not just get information from them, but to understand them as a person. And I think if you were just to phrase all the 48 laws of power, in order to gain that power, become all things to all people, and I think that will instantly, if you have that mentality, that will instantly give you power and influence over other people.
1000%. So I'm looking at these. The last few laws, I want to wrap up with just kind of reading the laws that I picked out. But the first 12 laws were the best ones, in my opinion. And then
Right,
after the first 12, he did a little bit of regurgitation. He even regurgitated some of the stories, just looked at them
right.
from a different perspective, which I found interesting. Now, the whole book is good, but the first 12 laws were awesome. After the first 12 laws, we had 22, which is use the surrender tactic. I really found 24 interesting, which I don't want to go through it right now, but it's play the perfect courtier. To me, it was a summary of the 48 laws and how we relate to peers, which I thought was really good. 27 was create a cult. I didn't like that one, but I thought, what in the world? This is the stupidest law that I've
Yeah,
ever heard. Shirts,
yeah,
and granted, it goes back to this is a way to create power. And if you want to create
right.
power, technically, you can create a cult and people will follow you. And he shows you how to create a cult if that's something that you want to do. Number 32, play to people's fantasies. The most detested person in the world is the one who always tells the truth. Again, we're regurgitating these same concepts. To gain power, you must be a source of pleasure to those around you, which we discussed last week. Again, Law 36, disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge. Remember, you choose to let things bother you. It is tempting to want to fix our mistakes, but the harder we try, the worse we often make them. So disdain what you cannot have. Other people won't be interested in it if you're not interested in it. Other people who have hurt you, if you disdain them, then they're not going to gain pleasure in hurting you back. 38, which is what you talked about. Think as you like, but behave like others. I wrote down the Bible verse. I don't know that you realize this is in the Bible. 1 Corinthians 9:21 through 22. I have become all things to all people. Do you know who said that?
I didn't know that that was. I mean, wow. Okay, who said that?
Paul.
Paul.
Paul
Paul
said
did.
that. He says, when I go to the Jews, I become as a Jew so that I can win them to Christ. When I go to the Gentiles, I become as a Gentile and I live like them so that I can win them to Christ. Now, people can say, oh, he's lying. He's wearing a mask. He's not being truthful. He's relating to them, which goes right back to the point that you were talking about. And then the last one, and I'll let you summarize all the ones that I listed. Never appear too perfect. Never be so foolish as to believe that you are stirring up admiration by flaunting the qualities that raise you above others. Subtly emphasize how lucky you have been to make your happiness seem more attainable to other people and the need for envy less acute. So if I've been successful in life and this is a mistake that I've made, something that I've learned, do not flaunt your success. Do not flaunt the nice house that you live in, the nice car that you drive, the quality of the work that you can get, the people that you associate with, the money that you have, none of that. And I've made that mistake at times in order to try to help people. Once I had a person who asked for advice regarding their taxes, and so I shared some of my financial situation in detail to them in an effort to help them, and that only came back to hurt me. I was, again, they thought, oh, he's making plenty of money. He doesn't need me to recommend him to these jobs. So therefore, I'm going to stop recommending him because he's making so much money. And it just came back to hurt me. I said a lot in summary of the last few laws. Again, first 12 kind of set up the foundation for everything else, but the whole book is good. Did you have any feedback on the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 laws that I just read?
No feedback. I have a question for you because, well, answer the question accordingly to how much you want to answer it. You had said, and you did not tell me why. And I don't know if you want to tell me why here, but you had messaged me because I was all excited about the laws of human nature, and you're like, I got to take a break from Robert Greene. Like, I got to take a break from him. And then you said, I won't say what you said in the text message, but Robert Greene is a heavy read because he makes you think extremely deeply about your life and how your life relates to other people. If you want to go into it in a 30-second version or a 3-minute version or a 30-minute version, I don't care. But could you expand upon why you would want to take a break from reading Robert Greene and what frustrated you about just now learning some of these laws as a man in your 40s?
The hardest thing about this book, and the reason why I feel so strongly about it, is because the people who try to present themselves as the most worthy, as of the highest moral character, as being the most honest, will look at this book and disdain it for its manipulative, seductive, and deceptive qualities, when in reality, I look at things that have been said and actions that have been taken, and it is crossing that moral line that we talked about. Behavior that I'm not comfortable with, but I didn't know at the time, and I was taken advantage of because of their ability to manipulate, deceive, and seduct. Now that I've read this book, I understand how it works. I'm going to draw my moral lines where I feel is appropriate, but it's heavy for me to think that people in our childhood, for example, that we looked up to and considered high levels of moral character. So I went to a college where I'm going to say one of the leaders, I'm not going to name the leader because I don't want to get sued, right? I don't want people to think that I'm libel or anything like that. So I'm just going to say someone that I used to know. I was involved with their program, and they were head of this organization. They would sit with us and brag about how they manipulated, lied, deceived, and seduced other people. Now, granted, they didn't use the words manipulated, lied, seduced, deceived, all of that. They didn't use that at all. But reading this book, thinking back on me going through those sessions, I see how horrible the manipulation, seduction, deceiving, all of that was. And that was held up as the alpha male, the alpha Christian male, who's the most powerful, has the ability to take advantage of so many people because this is a position that God has placed them. God has given them the right to take advantage of people and to essentially be worshipped. So it's hard for me to think that for so many years I lived under the illusion that certain people using the 48 laws of power to benefit themselves was a good thing when they were in actuality being extremely unethical and immoral. And for people, and as reading those Goodreads reviews say, this book is horrible. It's about seduction, manipulation. It's about being the worst type of person in the world, when in reality, you are not getting it. You are not getting it. This is how people are, of all stripes, of all religions, all nationalities, all creeds, from people who are closest to you to people that you pass in the grocery store. And I need to know how to react to those people. Because if I don't know how to react, then I'm only going to be taken advantage of. And if I want to institute my own power, which everybody's trying to do, then I need to implement these laws 1,000,000%. It's heavy because it hurts my heart that people are willing to take advantage of other people in the name of religion or in the name of justice or their own perspective in order to benefit themselves. It's hard for me to see people act that way. And reading this, I read an example or I read a law and I think, oh, that's this person. Oh, that means this person took advantage of me. Crap. That does not feel good at all. Or, oh, that's really good. You know what? This person did that. Oh, that means that they're a complete jerk, right? That is difficult to read because I consider myself a good person. I have very high standards of justice, morality, ethical behavior. And it hurts to think, but also it helps me understand the game. So whenever I have somebody who says, you're unethical or and they throw these words out, you are wrong for doing XYZ, it helps me to know, oh, they're just playing the game. I shouldn't hold it against them. And I'm going to do what I feel is morally and ethically right. And I'm going to use the 48 laws of power in my way, understanding that they are trying to use the laws of power in a morally deficient way. And that's just the way that the game is played. But I wanted a break because it hurts my heart that people are so nasty. But it's the way that the game is played.
You know, if
So
you're
that's
a
what I would have to say
father,
about it.
if you're a father, your son needs to know about the 48 laws of power as soon as
Yeah.
possible. And
Yep.
Soren knows I'm reading this book as I'm talking about power around the dinner table. We're playing cards last night at the campsite, and he's telling me, he's like, "Man, I got these cards here, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them." I'm like, "Dude, don't tell me that, because if you tell me that you
Yeah.
have, three aces or you have three twos or whatever, I can use that against you. You don't need to
Right.
tell me what's in your hand, because you're revealing your cards, and it's a lesson. I go into a law of like not revealing your cards, not revealing your intentions. And I think that our responsibility as dads is to teach our son about the world, to be life ready, to be worldly. That's the responsibility of us as fathers. And if you want to read 48 Laws of Power to learn how to seduce, manipulate, deceive other people, go ahead. If you want to read the 48 Laws of
Right.
Power to become powerful yourself and how to relate to other people, go ahead. If
Yep.
you want to be a father that helps your son be world ready, to be career ready, to be college ready, ready for life, you need to read 48 Laws of Power, because it's not just for you. It's to help teach your son about how the world works. And I've been reading the 48 Laws of Power through that lens, not just for myself, but I've been reading it. Okay, I need to teach Soren about not being so honest all the time. Not that
Mm-hmm.
deception is right, but to not really say what you're thinking all the time. And there's so
Mm-hmm.
many laws that I could go through and apply that to Soren, but he needs to know these things. That's my responsibility as a father. And so I think it's just, again, it's whatever lens you want to read the 48 Laws of Power under, that's what you're going to get from it. If you read it from a moral compass and you want to uphold the right moral compass, that's how you're going to read the 48 Laws of Power. If you're going to read
Mm-hmm.
it immorally because you want to seduce, manipulate, whatever, that's how you're going to read it. And like you said
Mm-hmm.
last week, when you open up that book, your heart is already set on your mentality for life. And I'm reading it again, not just for myself, but to help Soren understand how this world and how cruel this world can be if you don't know how power is divvied up and how power is executed.
Right. If we went back through the top 5 nonfiction books, I am going to have to say that this is my number one book.
Yeah.
We're going to be reading The Laws of Human Nature down the road. We're going to be on Simple Path to Wealth next, and then we're going to read 2 short books because we got to catch up since we're both going to be traveling a lot over the next few weeks. We're going to have time to record, so we're going to read Who Moved My Cheese, Question Behind the Question, and then we're going to move on again to another heavy book, The Laws of Human Nature. And I don't know that I'm looking forward to it just because human nature is despicable at times. But I need to learn that in order to know best how to navigate the world. Like you said it, I couldn't have said it better. Learning to navigate the world is how we learn how to be successful in the world, how we learn to take care of our family, to provide them with more resources because we're able to make the money that the world can give us because we have this power. But the laws of human nature, I see it. I see selfish motives in so many people. I see people who will attack us, for example, for saying that the 48 Laws of Power is literally one of the best books that we've ever read. Well, how immoral are you? How deceitful are you? Them saying that is literally them using the 48 Laws of Power to attack so that they can gain more power over me. Like, literally, that's what it is. And
100%.
that game is so disheartening. But people are going to say it. And they may think I'm all perfect and I'm, a pure heart and I'm the one that's moral. But in reality, they're playing the game and they're playing the game in a dirty way. They're literally using the 48 Laws of Power to their benefit. Either they are refusing or can't or do see it and are choosing to ignore it. And I think that is the heaviest part about this. So, Laws of Human Nature, I'm looking forward to reading it eventually, but I need to take a break. I'm going to read Dungeon Crawler Carl, Book 8,
Do it.
over our
Do it.
vacation to give me some lightheartedness. And then, of course, Simple Path to Wealth is a book that I love. So I'm looking forward to talk about that. But closing up,
100%.
we've gone over an hour and 45 minutes. Is there anything that you want to end off with?
No, man, thank you for, I say it all the time. Thank you for the great conversation over a wonderful cigar. Uh, I'm glad to be on this learning journey with you. And I think that when you talk about the things that matter in life, deep, honest conversation, like I'm not lying. I'm not trying to perform while on this podcast. It's literally, you read it, you interpret it, you share your thoughts, you're vulnerable. And I just appreciate this whole thing with you. So thank you.
I appreciate you 100%. Until the next episode.